Hey guys, welcome back to Meghan Grace DIY. Today's tutorial is going to be a 3-step, you heard me right, 3-step scrub cap. Make sure you stay all the way to the end for a very special announcement. With a lot of workplaces now requiring people to cover their hair, I've made a few different videos on how to make different types of scrub caps. But I also know that I've got a lot of different levels of sewing skill watching my channel. So I've made a tutorial on how to make a satin lined scrub cap that only takes 2 pattern pieces and a piece of elastic. I've made a video on how to make the popular BOUFFANT scrub cap that has a brim in the front and has pleats to create fullness to hold your hair. I enjoyed this pattern particularly because the brim helps it stay in place, and then there's also a pocket in the back to hold your hair comfortably. And then I've also listed a tutorial for the fitted scrub cap, and you can find the pattern pieces in the description below. But the cap I'm going to demonstrate today is certainly the simplest out of the 4 that I've listed. So if you've been scared of your sewing machine or scared of curved pattern pieces, give this one a try. I promise you'll be able to accomplish it. All you need to start is 1 square of cotton fabric, approximately 20 inches by 20 inches. I want you to fold it in half lengthwise and then fold it in half again widthwise. Next, we're going to mark with our pins a quarter circle, using the bottom left-hand corner as our anchor point. I'm taking my measuring tape and I'm going to hold the very end in that bottom left-hand corner. It should never move from that bottom left-hand corner. You're going to measure outward 9.5 inches and you're going to mark it with a pin. You're going to keep marking 9.5 inches, still holding the end of the tape at the bottom left corner, but rotating the tape measure up towards the top left-hand corner. Keep on going until you've put about 7 pins in place and you reach the top left-hand corner. It may be a little tricky to see my pins on the screen, but you've now created a quarter circle, and this is where you're going to cut. Using my fabric scissors, I'm going to cut around the pins, revealing a quarter of a circle. And don't forget to put all your pins back in the pin cushion, especially if you have pets, children, or a significant other that gets rightfully upset when he steps on one. Let's unfold the fabric to reveal our circle. And now we're going to talk about the second pattern piece for this scrub cap. You're going to need a 61-inch long, 1.5 inch wide strip of fabric. Now I know that's a pretty long piece of fabric, and if you only bought a little bit of fabric to complete this project, you can cut strips that are 1.5 inches wide and sew them together. I went ahead and pressed mine in half just to make it a little bit easier. Take the 2 ends of the strip and you're going to sew them together at 1/4 inch. Just be careful that you don't have any twists in your band. It's also important to note that you're sewing them together flat, not folded. Now that your strip of fabric makes a circle, you're going to fold it back in half again and match that seam that you just made up with the center top. We're next going to take our circle over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch this band all the way around the circle. My seam allowance is at about 1/4 inch and my stitch length is at a 3. By doing this, we're creating something called a casing. Anytime you put a casing in a garment or a project, you're basically making a tube that an elastic or a drawstring will be fed through. For this project, we're going to be feeding an elastic through it, and that's what's going to make the edge of the circle squish to your head and make sure it doesn't fall off, while giving you volume for your hair on the inside. As you start to come all the way full circle, you're going to make sure you leave about 1/2 inch open. That's how we're going to feed our elastic into the casing. And as you guys know, you should always finish off any seams that you make. My go-to seam finishing is to zigzag stitch the seam allowance, but if you have a serger, that's also a great way to apply a seam finish. And if you happen to own a pair of pinking shears, you can always trim the seam allowance down with those because the jagged edge helps prevent the fabric from fraying. And don't forget, as we get close to finishing the circle, you're still going to leave that 1/2 inch open. With your casing applied, we're now ready to insert the elastic. I prefer a safety pin to insert elastic into casing, but a crochet hook will also work. I cut 16 inches of elastic to fit around my head, but one thing I want to mention about elastic is it comes in different widths, different stretchabilities, and different heft. So even though 16 inches might be a good size in one type of elastic, it might not be a great size in another type of elastic. So I always recommend testing it before you cut it. As you scoot your safety pin along, you're going to push the fullness back towards the hole. We also want to be careful that we don't lose the elastic inside the casing. So what I'm going to do here is take the end and just pin it in place on the cap. That way it won't accidentally slip inside the casing, because if that happens, you have to start over. And you're going to keep just scooching all the way around that scrub cap until you reach the hole once again. Now that you've made it all the way around the circle, you're going to pull the elastic out through the same hole. Then you're going to take the two ends of the elastic and you're going to sew them together either by hand or with a zigzag stitch on the sewing machine. After you've stitched the elastic together, you're going to let it disappear inside the casing. And we're going to go over to the sewing machine and close up that hole. Just like the rest of the seam, I'm going to do a straight stitch and then put a zigzag stitch on the outside so it doesn't fray. One last thing we need to do before our cap is ready to wear is just make sure that the gathering is even all the way around. You don't want to have too many gathers in one spot, or else it'll be really uncomfortable. And now I think we're ready for a fit test. I've got my extra poofy hair today, and I'm gonna wrap it into a bun. And now I'm gonna take the scrub cap and I'm gonna place it over my head. I was a bit worried about this style of scrub cap that it wouldn't stay in place, but it passed my shake test and it's extremely comfortable to wear. And just like that, after following just a few simple steps, you've got a very comfortable scrub cap to wear either to sleep or to work. I hope you found this tutorial simple and easy to follow. But as always, if you have any kinds of questions, you can put them in the comment section below or you can email me. I'm also constantly looking for new ideas for tutorials, so if there's a project that you want to do and you can't find a good tutorial for it, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And now it's time for that special announcement. I sincerely want to thank all of my new subscribers and everyone who's been following my channel and helping it grow over the past 6 or 7 weeks. Sewing has always been just an incredibly important part of my life. So if I can do a giveaway that can help another person learn to sew or up their sewing game, I am going to do that. When the amazing day comes that I hit 5,000 subscribers, I'm going to pick one random comment out of the comment section in my videos, and that person will win a sewing kit. That kit will include a custom-made bag, an assortment of thread, pin cushions and a pin, some new scissors, and a seam ripper. So thanks again for stopping by Meghan Grace DIY. If you've made something from one of my tutorials, I would love to see pictures of it, and you can send them to meghangracediy@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe and the notify buttons. And if you found this tutorial helpful, make sure you share it with anyone else who you think it could be helpful to. Happy sewing, everybody, and hopefully see you soon.